What's up, basketball coaches, players, and fans? Welcome back to the Pass First podcast, where we share our knowledge of the game. My name is Augie Johnston, and I'm here with my partner, Alex Engel, and we hope you're able to take something away from today's episode that will help you in your basketball journey. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's episode, where we're going to talk about how to build the perfect team. All right, you guys, welcome into today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please follow us there as well. I'm excited about today's topic because we're going to be talking about how to build the perfect team. We're going to go through it position by position and just talk about what we are looking for in certain players. And if we were to be able to recruit, how we would kind of recruit the different players for our team. So good to see you, Alex. How you doing?
Good to be here.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into the first question. So in building your team, what qualities would you want in your team?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is I would like a team that has a high basketball IQ. I think that a lot of times you can make up for maybe deficiencies in other areas that with that high IQ, that maybe you're not as athletic or maybe not quite as skilled as some of the other teams you play. But if you can make the right reads and right decisions, having that high IQ can really change the game for you. So I'm a big fan of that. I definitely like to have players, when I was in a position where I could recruit, I looked for players that were like that. And now even, coaching at the high school level, I try and teach my players that ability to think the game while they're playing. So definitely that high IQ. And then a team that's selfless, so that they're willing to move the ball and play together. I think a lot of people, when they hear what are the qualities you want, they're probably like, oh, I want a bunch of knockdown shooters and a ton of athletes, right? And don't get me wrong, that's great, and there's obviously a ton of value in that as well. But I just think there are some things that are harder to get an entire team to do, and that is to work together and to think really well and to think smart. And I think in the long run, you'll actually do better with that type of a team than a team that's just full of athletes that are just playing for themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think everyone, that's the holy grail. You got the smart players out on the court coaching themselves. I totally agree with that. And I would do the same. I would look for an intelligent team or players that are intelligent. I want that to be like a core competency for our team. And also defense. I think I would try to build my team around defense, being able to pick up full court and do that kind of stuff. Also, you mentioned shooting. I'm the kind of person that would try to build my team around shooting. So I'm looking for players that can pick up, D up, knock down shots. And yeah, just kind of be able to play fast. And I think if you have the intelligence, I think my high school team that I played on personally, we succeeded due to intelligence. A lot of times we had like a 6'2" post player a lot of times out there. So I think that's definitely one of the cornerstones. So, okay. Like I said, you guys, we're going to break this down position by position. So we'll ask, the next question, we'll start talking about positions. And as far as your point guard goes, what are some qualities that you would look for in your point guard?
So first thing is leadership. Okay. Definitely need a point guard that can lead the team. Needs to be kind of like another coach on the floor, knows, runs the offense, knows when the team needs to be slowed down, knows when the team needs to go faster. You need to have that type of leadership, and then definitely IQ. I think more than any other position, your point guard has to be really smart because they're the quarterback, right? They're running the team. They're running the show. They're putting everyone where they're supposed to be. So you definitely need those two things. I need a vocal point guard as well, because if someone's out of place, I need a point guard that's not afraid to say, hey, move, I need you over there, or move, or over here, or whatever it is. If your point guard's shy and afraid to do that, it's going to make it tough for you to run your stuff efficiently, especially when you're in, if you're in a loud gym and a bunch of people are yelling at you, you got to have someone that's leading that team on the floor, right? And then I think the last and probably equally as important is just a really good facilitator. If my point guard can score and can, get to the rim and can shoot it, obviously, we would all love a point guard that can do everything. But I think as the person who has the ball in their hands, if they can get into the paint and facilitate and they're getting 6-7 assists a game, I can live with them averaging 6-7 assists and maybe only 4 or 5 points rather than averaging like 10-11 points and like 1 assist, right? Like I'd rather have someone that can get the rest of the team involved, because I just think that's kind of the value out of that point guard position.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I want my point guard to be the guy that's creating for everybody because the point guards normally have the ball in their hands. So if they're just going to pound it and then take a shot or whatever, then no one else is going to get involved, and it's going to be a lot harder to win games. So I'm with you on that. I also, for me personally, my point guard, I love point guards that pick up full court. So that's something I would look for in a point guard, and just somebody that can turn the person that they're guarding multiple times in the backcourt all game long. I love that kind of stuff. In college, we had a point guard like that, and it just helped us a ton. I also want a point guard as far as talking about, creating and getting other players involved, like one that you can't stay in front of, right? No matter what, if they're going to press us, we give him the ball and he's able to beat the press. One that, when the clock is ticking down 10-9, we're able to get him the ball and he's at least going to get into the paint, get a paint touch and kick it out or make a play for somebody. That's the kind of point guard I want. And yeah, everything else is just cherries on top, right? If they can shoot, if they can score, then great. But the facilitator is super important to have because they got to be an extension of the coach on the court. So I think those are all great things. I think we line up pretty equally on that. I mean, when I played point guard in high school, I was definitely a pass first point guard. So I always have like a soft spot for pass first point guard. So
And I think too,
yeah.
oh my, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one other thing too is you do want them to still be able to score a little bit, because if they can't score at all, then when you get in the paint and the shot clock winds down, even if you can beat your man off the dribble and you get in the paint, if they know you can't score, they're gonna be like, all right, go ahead, take the shot, right? So you have to be able to at least be a threat to score. Just because I think if not, the teams will just sit on the person you're trying to pass to, right? They'll just sit and be like, okay, we'll let you get in the paint all day, but if you can't make a bucket in here, then that's fine with us. So there does have to be like a baseline level that you're able to score at in order to be efficient, as a facilitator.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. All right. Let's go and just keep running down the list. So point guard, let's jump with this shooting guards. So what are some qualities you like in shooting guards?
I mean, the first one in the name, obviously, you got to be able to shoot the ball. So I want my two, and as we get to the three, we're going to talk about that as well. My twos and my threes need to be able to shoot it. Definitely would like them to be able to put the ball on the floor a little bit, if they can get to the basket. But if I've got a guy that's just, a straight spot up type of player, then he's probably going to be fitting more at the two. Some other qualities is if you can get a two that's a little bit lankier and maybe can play defensively, guarding, some other opposite team's wings, or maybe even guard a little bit bigger than their position. I like to have potentially taller wings. So that's another thing that I'm looking for. But yeah, I think those are probably, I guess maybe a mentality wise, as like I'm looking to score a little bit. If you're playing the two, and that's, I think, the interesting part about basketball is the point guard can have a mentality that fits really well with the point guard position, and the two could have a very different mentality that fits very well with that position, right? So if you're that Michael Jordan, Kobe, that's like, hey, I want the ball, I want to shoot it, that's probably going to fit you better at the two than it is at the one in most cases, right? So definitely a player that's not afraid to let it fly, but understands that you don't want to be a ball hog either, right? You got to have that balance.
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, most not this is very stereotyping a lot, but a lot of great shooters are not great at putting the ball down on the deck, right? There's a reason you're on the court. It's because you're cash money from three, but no one's looking for you to create and do that kind of stuff. So I think in my head, normally my three man is going to be like the shooter on my team. When I think of my two man, I think of a guy, my secondary ball handler is what I think of. Like maybe my two man is even really more like a pure point a lot of times. And also my two man can play the backup point and can guard the other point guard. So for me, I'm thinking more of a more athletic two man that is, might have to sacrifice shooting a little bit in that position so that he can be maybe a better defender or something like that. And my three man would be the one who's the catch and shoot type player. But with all that said, I would love for my two man to be able to create his own shot. And so if our point guard is more of a pass first point guard that can get into the paint, but not really shooting it that well, or, not really a scoring option, well, then my two man would be the guy that we could give the ball to, at the end of the game, and they could put, like I said, secondary ball handler, they could put it on the deck, create for themselves, for others. and almost like an extension of the point guard. Yeah, and so I thought about that, and I actually got that philosophy from when I was playing on a certain team. They moved me to the three. I was always playing the three, and we always had almost like 2 point guards on the court. So it was just an interesting dynamic that I enjoyed. So, all right, let's keep on moving down the list. Now we'll talk about the 3-man position or small forward position. In your head, if you were to recruit a three, what are some things you'd be looking for?
So a lot of the things at the three, to be honest, for me, I think that's maybe where we differ. Is my twos and my threes, I don't necessarily like to be that, or necessarily need them to be that different. I'm okay if they're like almost interchangeable, so that I could play them at either side. So again, someone that can shoot it. Maybe my three might be able to put it on the floor a little bit better than my two. Um, but again, I don't have to have that. What I do actually look for in my twos and threes, though, is maybe what hand they are. So if they're a right-hander, I'm probably going to stick them in the 2 slot more than if they're a left-hander. I'm probably going to stick them in the 3 slot, and that's just because the way I run my offense, my 2 runs down the right side of the court, and my 3 runs the left side. So it keeps them on their strong side. So I'll look into that type of stuff, and then maybe I think another quality that might find someone playing the 3 a little bit more than the 2 is if they're a player that can play like 3-4. And they're a little bigger, more athletic, then I might play them more at the 3 than a guy like you said, who's maybe like a 2-1 who can play backup point guard. I think that might be another little differentiator for me is if you're more of a 3 that can play the 4 rather than the point guard, then you're probably going to fit in that 3 slot rather than the 2. Because if you can handle the ball well, like you said, it's always nice to have 2 point guards on the court, or at least 2 guys that can handle the ball like a point guard. So I think that's kind of from where I would look at it as maybe some of the subtle differences. But as far as the overall skill sets, most of the time they're probably going to be pretty similar for myself.
Nice. I like that. And I agree. I think the 2 and the 3 on most teams are interchangeable, just like the 4 and 5 are probably interchangeable on most teams to a certain degree. But for me, my 3-man, like I already said, that's going to be maybe the guy that I need to hide defensively because he might just be a catch and shoot guy. I want him putting up big numbers. Could be our leading scorer who's able to, get to the free throw line because he's big and he can get in there. If we need him to guard big, we could have him guard big. I mean, in an ideal world, he would be athletic too as well and, be able to guard big and play bigger than he is. But if he's just a catch and shoot kind of guy who's not like a great defender, someone we got to hide, I could still find a place for him at the 3 because I want that person just putting up points and, any kind of rebounding ability and, if you're lanky and any kind of stuff like that, that'd be great. We would need some rebounding out of that position for sure. But all right, let's keep on moving ahead. Shooting guard. We talked about small forward. Now we're going to talk about power forward. Okay, so this is probably where we'll start to differentiate a little bit, I'm guessing. But let's go ahead and hear from you on your power forward.
Yeah, so power forward, I want them to be obviously, most likely they're going to be my second tallest player on the floor, right? I want them to be mobile though. I like having power forwards that can move. If you think about like that traditional back in the day, like grinded inside power forward, I'm not necessarily looking for that. I like a power forward that can move, that can score inside, like has some ability in, around the post or around the basket, but can also pick and pop and maybe hit a jump shot. Or just is mobile enough to maybe guard like a 2 or a 3 if I need them to, so that if we have to switch a screen, or just something like that, they have that mobility. I really like that in my 4-man. And I've run lineups where I go small and my 4-man is, like I said, basically like a 3 that can just play that 4 position. And I've also played on, or not only played on, but coach teams where, our 4-man is like a traditional like 6'8", 6'9" guy that can kind of bang inside. So I don't think necessarily there's a right or wrong answer. I guess it's all personal preference there, but I just personally like a more mobile 4 because I think when we get to the 5, I guess you'll see my philosophy on the 5 more, and it gets more room. It gives you more ability to run like a 4 out 1 in, as opposed to if they're that real traditional post that just plays inside. You're probably not going to be able to run a 4 out 1 in with that type of a player on the perimeter.
Yeah, so we don't differentiate that much. We both want pick and pop 4s, stretch 4s, guys that can shoot it. A lot of times my 4s in my head are undersized and but can play big. They can shoot 3s. And I also want my 4s to be able to put it on the deck too. So I would love to be able to have 1 through 5 be able to even put it on the deck and become the point guard, because in our offense, whoever gets the rebound, their first look is to advance the ball up the court. And if they can advance it up the court, advance it. If not, then they become the point guard. So I would want my four-man to be able to grab rebounds, take a dribble, 1, 2, 3 up the court, pass ahead. Just be a smart player in the fact that they're gonna be able to recognize if I'm guarding, or if a little guy's guarding me, I can post him up because I'm a power forward, or if a big guy's guarding me, I should stretch him out and play on the perimeter. That'd be great if our four-man could recognize that on his own. But yeah, I think we both want mobile big men that can stretch the floor. So cool. All right. This is we're flying through these, so we'll go ahead and talk about the center position next. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the center position I like a little more traditional style where can play in the post. Obviously, you have hopefully a decent amount of size. Can score inside. I think that's such a lost ability. I know saying lost art is so cliche, but it really is. Like post play is almost disappeared in a lot of ways. So if you can get a post player that can score inside, I really think they can be dominant. I need someone that's going to rebound. And I did kind of forget to say that about the four. Like I need my four to be able to rebound as well.
Mm-hmm.
So my four and my five have to both just be, really good, tremendous rebounders. I want my five to protect the paint. I don't necessarily need my five to be someone that can attack off the dribble. If they can, I'm not anti the five taking a 3-pointer either though, right? Like if my five has the ability to hit a 3-pointer, I'm okay with them taking that shot, but I don't want my five to be a guy who lives on the perimeter. I would prefer him to be able to get on the block and to be able to dominate inside, because I think when you get that inside out presence and you get a guy who can catch in the block and just create either a one-on-one opportunity from the score, 6-7 feet from the basket, or they cause the defense to shift and move, and then you can play off of that. You can get open kickouts, you can get cuts to the basket. I just think it makes it a lot easier for an offense to work when you have someone that you can give the ball to inside like that. So definitely want, like I said, a rebounder. I would like them to have some height, ability to protect the rim, maybe block some shots, and just be able to kind of be that inside presence that the other four players may not bring on that same level. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Nice, the traditional 5-man, but you let him shoot threes. So
I
hey.
do let him shoot threes, so he's like a little hybrid traditional.
Okay, cool, very nice. Yeah, for me myself, I would say definitely we want rim protection. We want to be able to keep that guy on defense low as much as we can so that he can protect the rim. On offense, I want that guy all over the offensive glass. And, I don't know if you saw Anthony Davis last night in the Laker game. I don't know how many offensive rebounds he had, but he was at one point, I know he had 22 points and he hadn't missed a shot yet or something like that. And it's because he was getting offensive rebounds, putting them in. And that's what I want my 5-man to do too. I think I would love for my 5-man to be able to put it on the deck and make good outlet passes and stuff like that. But I think if you're asking for somebody that's going to be a rim protector, you're not going to get somebody that's going to be able to bring the ball up. So I just want him to be a good outlet passer. Like Kevin Love, I felt like made it to the NBA because he was famous in college for his outlet passing. And we want to play fast. So a big man that can grab boards off the glass and throw really good outlets would be huge for us. Also, a big man that can play is a good passer and can play out of the high post. So I guess I wouldn't want a traditional 5 that's basically back to basket in the low block at all times. Maybe someone a little bit less, maybe smaller, whatever, but somebody that can play out of the high post and get catches and hit cutters and stuff like that. Like I guess the what's his name, Jokic for the Nuggets, that something like that. Like that's the kind of 5-man I would like. He offers, I think, the things that I said with the rim protection, the outlet passing, the high post play. That's what I would love to have somebody like that.
I think we'd all love to have a Jokic on our team.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, okay. So I guess if you were to maybe draft some players, what kind of strategy would you use? Like, who would you go for first, and why?
I'm definitely going to take a point guard first. I think if you can get a really strong point guard, you set up the rest of your team nicely because they, like I said, if you get that guy who can facilitate and create for others, then you're just going to make things so much easier for yourselves. And I guess it kind of depends on the level you're talking about, right? If you're looking in the NBA, you may pick something different because all those guys are so elite. But for most cases, like at most levels, even at the college level, most teams don't just have a ton of guys that can go get buckets on their own, like consistently at a high percentage and like win games by themselves, right? Um, and I don't know if you agree with me about that. Definitely not at the high school level. And I really don't think even at the college level that guys are that elite against other college players that it's like, all right, go get me 25 every night, just on your own, and you're gonna do it out of ISO ball, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Okay.
I think except for at the elite high school, like the prep level, right? Those guys
Right.
are a different breed than what we see here locally.
Right. And I would say in high school you will find those guys too here and there, but it's
Sure.
not
Yeah.
very common, right? So generally speaking, if the players are not going to just be able to go get 20 by themselves, you're going to want someone that's going to be able to set them up so that they can, score in your system efficiently too, cuz anybody can chuck up 40 shots and get 20, right? But we want someone that can chuck up 12 shots and get 20. That's the ideal situation. Um so I think just that point guard for me, it's like, okay, you're going to get that point guard and that can make the team go. And I guess maybe for me, some of the reason that I've seen that is, and it's not just because I'm a point guard, but it's because I've actually coached teams where we've had a ton of talent, but just no strong point guard. And that team has really underperformed and not done well. And then I've coached teams that have had okay talent, but just elite point guard. And that team like overachieved and won so many more games than the other team, that had a lot, really more talent overall. And it was just because nobody could control the game. There was nobody to say to on the court, be that coach and be like, here's what we need to do. I think that's so undervalued. And I think if you see and you watch basketball, whether it's at the college level, at the high school level, or even if you just go play pickup, if you get a team that has a smart ball handler and can like get everyone else set up, like those teams tend to do better overall. So that would probably be my first pick. Then is definitely gonna be a point guard.
Yeah, and I agree with this statement about when going and playing pickup or whatever it is. Like so many times, I feel like I've been on just terrible pickup teams or whatever, totally overmatched by the other team, player for player. But if I can just get my guys to like sprint their lanes and like throw and play fast or whatever, like we can win because I'll just play point guard and make everybody run and make good passes, and we can win. But it's the same philosophy, right? I'm making everyone else better.
Mm.
For me, I would say I agree with all that. I probably would go point guard too, but I might not. I might go get myself a big because I think, point guards are a little bit more dime a dozen. And, you get it yourself, you go with the point guard, then you don't end up with any size or anybody that can rebound. Then you're just as bad off as you were. You're still screwed no matter what
Mm-hmm.
because there's just so many important aspects of the game. But yeah, I think for me, I would try to get like a 4-man that could play the 5, that's versatile, that can, like all the things we said before, pick and pop, and he can get me 20 and 10, right? Or 20 and 12. Like if I could get a guy that could get me 20 and 12, I think I would take that over a point guard that is a great facilitator that can get you whatever 10 and 5 or 14 and 5, whatever average would be for a point guard. But yeah, and you know what? I could end up being screwed with that too, because if I do not end up getting anybody that can play point, then yeah, then we're gonna get pressed, and teams are gonna turn us over, and we'll never will have an opportunity to get it to our big guy. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I think I would go with the big just because they're hard to find.
Mm. And I know I don't know if you were gonna touch on this, but just kind of talking about, we're talking about all these roles and things you can do as a player. And I think for players that are trying to develop and be like, okay, what can I do to be the best, player on the court or whatever to reach my goals? I think a lot of times, and I probably did the same, we model our games and we think about it like, okay, I need to be the next Michael Jordan or the next LeBron James or the next Kobe Bryant. And not that those things are wrong, because those players do a lot of great things, right? Obviously, that's why they're some of the greatest players to ever play. But in reality, if you really want to be successful, you need to find whatever the role is that your coach wants you to fit in and just be really good at that. And I think sometimes players, even like I said, in college, where they'll go at it to an open gym and maybe play against competition that's not as great, and they're killing in an open gym, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to kill this season. I got all this ability. And you have to realize that like it's not what you can do in open gym. It's what you can do against other players of the same or better level than you, you know? So if you can get 20 in open gym, great. But can you go get 20 every night against other college guys? Because if you can't do that on your and also win, right? Not just get 20 and lose, but get 20 and win. If you're not a player that can do that every night, then you might want to find a role to fit in that's going to get you, you know, more playing time and more touches, because again, it's very rare. I mean, and it's not common to have a guy that can really just dominate on one side of the ball so much that you're like, hey, he can just win us games. So I think that's just, as we were talking about that, I was thinking about that. And, you know, even in the NBA, really, you think about it, there's 25, 30 guys that are like the elite. And then the rest of the players, they're all really role players. If you really think about it, they're, you know, most of the NBA, I don't know how many are guys in the NBA, was like 400, something like that. Most of those guys are role players, only like 25, 30 that are not role players. So just be aware of that. If you're a player yourself, not everybody's a star, but you can still have a long career playing a certain role.
Yeah, and I think a lot of NBA players, that's what they're masters of. They're masters of their roles in the NBA, and that's how they're able to stick around. And as soon as they try to do something that's outside of their role, that's when they get cut, you know? And I mean, there was a guy that I played against in Luxembourg who made it all the way to the NBA, and even played for the Warriors and stuff in the finals. And when I was like, how'd this guy make it? But then I looked at how he was playing, and I'm like, wow, he's filling that role for them like perfectly, like playing defense, you know, corner threes when he's wide open, and then, you know, grabbing O boards every now and then. And that's like icing on the cake. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense. He filled that role for them. So I think,
And you can, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think, yeah, that should trickle down to all levels, right? Just master your role and you'll find success.
And you could be a role player at one level and be a star at another. That's another thing people have to remember too. You know, the higher you get, the harder it is to be a star. So you might be a star in high school and a role player in college, or maybe even a star in college. And if you make it professionally, more of a role player, you know, depending on where you're at. So I just think people have to remember that, like, not saying you shouldn't be happy when you're being successful if you're at an open gym, or even if you're in a, you know, a league in the summertime between season, whatever, and you're doing well, like, that's great. It's good. You know, it's good. You want to obviously do as best as you can and try and dominate as much as possible, but it doesn't always translate, because you have to see, well, is that the same competition I'm going to play when I go into my actual season?
Yep. I always talk about that. All that matters is what happens in the real games with real refs and real score, because practice is a whole nother thing, man. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you guys liked today's episode. That's all we got for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like today's episode and you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you subscribe there as well. We come out with a new episode once a week, and we hope to see you guys in the next one. See you guys very soon.
Peace.